Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere a little rougher than your usual bedtime destination. Imagine this. You open your eyes and the first thing you notice isn't the sun. It's the smell. A thick, fermented mix of smoke, sweat, manure, and something you really don't want to identify. Welcome to the American frontier circa 1870. You're not in a movie. You're in the real Wild West. And yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Always fun to see how far these little journeys travel. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up on a lumpy mattress, if you can call it that, basically a burlap sack, stuffed with straw and inhabited by a colony of bedbugs you definitely didn't invite. Your back is sore, your neck is stiff, and your entire body feels like it's been used as a fence post. The cabin around you is cramped, its wooden boards warped and cracked. Light leaks through in crooked lines like the whole building is breathing. There's no insulation, and depending on the season, you're either wrapped in every thread you own or sweating before you've even stood up. There's no thermostat, just firewood if you have any, and you're pretty sure you're out. The first sound you hear isn't birdsong, it's coughing. A dry, hacking cough coming from the next room. Maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's you. Tuberculosis doesn't knock before it enters, and you've been feeling that tickle in your throat for days. You try to stretch, but immediately regret it. Your joints are inflamed from hard labor, your feet blistered from yesterday's hike to the well, and your fingers still sore from wringing out laundry in freezing water. No, there's no machine for that, just your hands and the memory of soap you used up a week ago. You sit up and brush straw off your shirt. Or was that a bug? Hard to tell. Your one set of clothes, what you slept in, will work in, and probably die in, hangs from a wooden peg. It smells like everyone who's ever worn it, including the horse that you borrowed it from last week. Good thing you only own 2 shirts. Makes choosing easy. You move to the door and push it open slowly. The air hits your face, dry and bitter. There's wind, but it doesn't soothe. It scrapes, dust in your teeth, in your nose, in your eyes. You squint toward the horizon and spot nothing but the endless tan of prairie and the dark, broken skeletons of trees too stubborn to fall. Your stomach grumbles, reminding you that breakfast is a thing. Sort of. Maybe you've got some beans left from last night. Cold beans. Again. No milk, no fruit, no cereal. Unless you count oats soaked in sadness. But before we even get there, let's consider what your day holds. Because in the Wild West, there is no such thing as a typical day. There's only survive. And maybe, avoid dysentery, wolves, or the neighbor who thinks you looked at his horse funny. Historians still argue whether the average settler's day was more defined by nature's cruelty or by human unpredictability. You'll come to know it's both. You're not just battling the elements, you're constantly calculating who might steal your supplies, shoot you for your boots, or accidentally forget your name when the sheriff asks. Outside, a rooster crows, not for your benefit, just to remind you it's morning and everything hurts. He sounds smug. You hate him a little. You trudge toward the pump, your only source of water unless you count puddles and desperation. The handle sticks. You jerk it hard, and finally, a thin stream gurgles out. It smells metallic. You're not sure it's clean, but you drink anyway. Because what's your alternative? Washing up? That's optional. More on that in a bit. For now, you just notice how fast the sun climbs and how far the next task already feels. The fields need plowing. The tools are dull. And your neighbor borrowed your mule and didn't return it. Again. That neighbor, you're not sure if he's more likely to apologize or to shoot you. Frontier etiquette is a little looser than modern HR policies. And yet, for a moment, as you step into the open, there's beauty too. The sky is too wide to comprehend, a dome of pale fire. The silence stretches out, not empty but full of dry grass whispering, full of insect wings and far-off howls. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like a speck, and yet somehow responsible for the whole world. It's your first hour in the Wild West, and already your body hurts, your stomach growls, and your life expectancy has dropped dramatically. But hey, at least you're not bored. You eye the water in your hands, hesitate, then splash a little on your face. It's cold enough to snap your soul awake, but not quite strong enough to rinse off the feeling of sleeping in a bug hotel. No soap, no towel, just your hands and whatever lint-soaked rag hasn't been repurposed as insulation or bandage yet. Cleanliness here isn't a virtue, it's a luxury, and not one many can afford. Bathing, as you knew it, doesn't exist. No hot showers, no lavender body wash, no cheerful loofahs. In fact, most people you'll meet today haven't had a proper wash in weeks, months if it's winter. There's just not enough water for that kind of decadence, when every drop has to be hauled or rationed between drinking, cooking, and not dying of thirst. Washing your armpits ranks low. In fact, one fringe theory some historians debate, though not universally accepted, is that certain frontier communities adopted smoke cleaning rituals, standing over a smoldering fire pit to sterilize their clothing and bodies. Did it work? Probably not. Did it mask the smell? Only if you like your stink with a hint of hickory. And it's not just you. The entire settlement smells like a community potluck hosted in a compost pile. Body odor is the default. So is the stench of manure, rotting food scraps, and whatever's fermenting in the outhouse. You try not to think about. Still, people here carry on because when everyone smells like misery, no one notices anymore. You reach for your shirt and pants. The fabric scrapes your skin, stiff from sun, sweat, and wear. Washing clothes is even harder than washing yourself. Water costs too much. Soap is handmade, harsh, and rare. And laundries, where they exist, are usually in town and cost more than your breakfast. Besides, dragging your clothes to town means you'd have to be without clothes for the trip back. You button up your crusty shirt and yank on your boots, still half hoping you won't find a scorpion or snake inside. It was a real problem back then, critters curled up in warm shoes overnight. You knock the heel, hear nothing, and breathe relief. One of your socks is missing. Again. You put on the lone survivor, half out of spite. Your boots rub your heel raw, but at least they're boots. Some folks here walk barefoot until winter freezes their toes into resignation. A couple of neighbors shuffle past your door. You nod. They grunt. No one smiles in the morning, or at least not without a few missing teeth. You remember that historian's note. Dental hygiene wasn't non-existent, just terrifying. Frontier folks brushed their teeth with twigs, ash, or salt, if they bothered at all. Dentists, rare. and more likely to pull than fix. By 30, you're lucky to still chew anything harder than mashed beans. Outside, the sun is already cruel. Your skin prickles under the dry heat, but you leave your sleeves long. Why? Sunburn. And, oh yeah, mosquitoes. They're not just annoying out here, they're lethal. Malaria and yellow fever were present in parts of the frontier, and nobody had bug spray, unless you count the desperate folk remedy of rubbing pig fat on your skin. Spoiler, it didn't work. You pass a makeshift clothesline where someone's laundry flaps limply in the breeze. It's mostly undergarments, if you can call them that. Cotton long johns stitched by hand with more holes than thread. That's high fashion out here. And let's talk corsets. If you're a woman, this is your daily prison. Even in searing heat, society says lace it up, strap it tight, and don't complain when you faint after splitting logs and delivering a baby all before noon. Men aren't much better off. Your pants are denim or canvas, thick as bark, chafing with every step. Underwear? Maybe. Probably not. You wear what you have, and you patch it until the fabric gives up, or until the patches start needing patches. Historians still argue whether the average settler was aware of how bad they looked, or if survival simply wiped out vanity. But frontier photos do reveal one thing. No one smiled. And honestly, you wouldn't either in these pants. And still, somehow, there's pride. People here take care of what little they own. That shirt with the missing buttons? Repaired with mismatched thread. Those boots with flapping soles? Nailed down again and again. You're poor, but you're resourceful. Or maybe just too stubborn to admit defeat. As the day warms, the smell of people thickens in the air like soup. You catch a whiff of something sharper. Someone's brewing lye soap nearby. It's strong. It burns, but it works. A good bar of that stuff could strip paint off a barn and probably your skin too. You think back to your own hygiene routine. A splash of water, a grimace, and a lot of hoping no one stands downwind. That's it. No face wash. No shampoo. Maybe some homemade vinegar rinse if you're fancy. And you're not fancy. You remember reading somewhere that cowboys occasionally bathed in rivers while driving cattle. Sound romantic. You step away from the cabin fully dressed in discomfort. Your shirt sticks to you in all the wrong places. Your pants feel like they were designed by someone actively trying to punish skin. And your boots. Those are medieval foot traps with stitching. Welcome to the Frontier Fashion Show, where everything itches and dignity died 3 washes ago. The wind kicks up a fine dust that immediately lodges in your eyes, nose, and shirt collar. You blink, you sneeze, you swear under your breath, though you keep it PG because even your curses are tired out here. Let's talk about what you're wearing. Men's clothing in the Wild West was all about durability. Denim or canvas trousers, often stiff as planks. A cotton shirt that's never quite clean, patched at the elbows, and faded from sun and sweat. If you're lucky, a vest, because layers meant warmth, and warmth meant not dying when the wind howled. And if it's Sunday, you might have a second shirt. Maybe. Women had it worse. Layers on layers, chemise, corset, petticoats, bodice, and a dress that drags through dirt like a mop that never met a floor. Imagine doing farm chores, hauling water, wrangling children, all while trussed up tighter than a Thanksgiving turkey. Oh, and sweating buckets under 3 skirts while everyone pretends it's normal. Historians still argue whether women's fashion was more about modesty or control. But most agree on one thing: it wasn't about comfort. And corsets weren't just inconvenient. They could restrict lung capacity, cause fainting, and even shift internal organs with prolonged wear. The fainting couch wasn't a joke. It was a necessity. You walk past a neighbor's homestead where a woman's doing laundry. She's got her sleeves rolled up and is scrubbing clothes on a washboard, like she's trying to punish the fabric into submission. The water in her basin is already gray, and she's only just started. She'll do this for hours. Then she'll hang the clothes on a line and hope the wind doesn't snatch them away, or that some opportunistic passerby doesn't steal the only pair of trousers her husband owns. And it's not just the effort, it's the time. One load of laundry might take all day. Boil the water, scrub the clothes, wring them out, hang them, mend what's torn. You start to understand why folks wore their clothes until they were basically fabric ghosts. You glance down at your own get-up. The pants are stiff enough to stand on their own. Your shirt collar has gone from white to mystery beige. And your hat, if you have one, isn't for style. It's the only thing keeping the sun from burning your scalp to a crisp. No sunscreen out here, just hats, handkerchiefs, and wishful thinking. In fact, one quirky detail most people forget. Some settlers used homemade sun protection creams, like a mix of lard, beeswax, and zinc oxide. Others tried bizarre folk remedies, including smearing mud on their faces or wrapping their heads in cheesecloth. One weird rumor, though unproven, claims some folks even used burned corncob ash as sunblock. Frontier life was basically one giant DIY experiment. Your clothes aren't just uncomfortable, they're a hazard. Long skirts catch on brambles, loose shirts get snagged on nails, and none of it is fireproof. Important when open flames are your primary heat source, and you're always one grease spark away from becoming a cautionary tale. As you pass by the general store, you spot a rack of new clothes, meaning they haven't been worn more than once. The price tag nearly knocks the breath out of you. A pair of decent boots might cost more than a month's wages. A good hat, equivalent to your whole winter food supply. So people make do. Old clothes get cut down for kids. Petticoats become dust rags. Outgrown shirts get turned into quilts. And when fabric gets too threadbare, it becomes stuffing for pillows, toys, or even insulation jammed into wall cracks. Nothing goes to waste, not because it's trendy or sustainable, but because it's that or freeze. You stop for a second and watch a group of children playing nearby. Their clothes are patched, frayed, and a little too big or too small, but they're still running, shouting, laughing. Even in rags, childhood finds a way. There's something oddly beautiful in all this mess. Not in the fabric or the fashion, but in the determination. These people dress for survival, not approval. And every rip, stain, and fray tells a story of labor, of loss, of doing the best you can with what little you have. Mainstream fashion historians sometimes overlook this rugged creativity, but dig a little deeper and you'll find resourcefulness stitched into every garment. You keep walking, boots grinding into the dust, collar scratching your neck, pants reminding you that comfort is a 20th century invention. But you keep going, because that's what everyone does out here. And besides, you've got beans to eat, whether you like them or not. Your stomach growls again, louder this time, reminding you that while the Wild West might not offer luxury, it certainly keeps you grounded. By hunger, mostly. You shuffle back toward the cabin where breakfast awaits. And by awaits, we mean it's the same three things it's always been: beans, biscuits, and maybe coffee if you're lucky. If not, it's just hot water pretending to be coffee and failing the audition. You ladle out the beans from a tin pot that's seen better decades. The smell is familiar, earthy, smoky, slightly metallic. The beans were probably cooked yesterday or the day before and left to simmer by the fire all night. Frontier refrigeration, after all, is just leave it near something that's not currently on fire. The biscuit is hard, not like crunchy, but like could be used in small-scale construction. You tap it on the wooden table, it thuds. You tap it on your knee, it hurts. You sigh and bite in anyway. You've chewed leather boots that were softer. Historians still argue whether frontier food was bland by necessity or preference, but there's no debate about one thing. It was repetitive. Most meals consisted of the same basic ingredients: flour, salt, beans, pork fat, and whatever else didn't rot in a day. Vegetables, seasonal fruit, a luxury, and fresh milk, only if you had a cow and she liked you. Your coffee, or what passes for it, is brewed dark and bitter. So bitter, in fact, that people used to toss in eggshells to clarify it. Some even added salt or pepper. A few legends mention folks tossing in crushed acorns, roasted grain, or charcoal to cut the taste. That's not a beverage, it's a dare. Still, you sip it, not for the flavor, but for the warmth and the caffeine. Let's be honest, you're not awake yet. You're just conscious and uncomfortable. As you eat, a fly lands on your cup. You swat it, but 5 more take its place. Flies are everywhere here. They breed in the manure, the outhouses, the food scraps, and possibly your scraps. There's no window screen, no bug zapper, no citronella candles. Just your hands, your reflexes, and your growing tolerance for extra protein. You chew slowly, listening to the wind whistle through the cracked door frame and the occasional far-off neigh of a horse. Breakfast might not be glamorous, but it's what's available. And you eat not because you're excited, but because you have to. Calories are fuel, and today, like every day, promises to burn a lot of them. One curious detail that's often overlooked: the Wild West had a surprisingly high rate of nutritional deficiencies. Scurvy wasn't just for pirates. Vitamin C was almost impossible to find in winter months. Your gums would bleed, your joints would ache, and eventually your teeth might fall out. Sound fun? That's because it's not. And that's just one issue. Pellagra from lack of niacin. Rickets from vitamin D deficiency. Frontier life was like a science experiment in how long the human body could last on beans and prayers. You remember someone telling you that pickled vegetables were the secret. But pickling requires vinegar, and vinegar requires time, ingredients, and storage space. Most settlers didn't have enough food to preserve. They had enough to not starve. That was the bar. There's a knock at your door. It's your neighbor bringing by a treat. A jar of preserved pork that smells like last year's regrets. You accept it with a polite nod. Refusing food on the frontier is considered an insult, even if you're reasonably sure it might be your last meal ever. They chat for a minute, or rather grunt and gesture. Words are expensive in the morning, but they leave with a smile or a close approximation, and you're reminded of a strange but true fact. Food was one of the few social currencies that everyone understood. Sharing a meal might mean trust, friendship, or alliance, especially when meat is rare and salt is more valuable than gossip. You finish your biscuit, having softened it in the coffee like a true strategist. Your teeth survived, barely. Outside, the day brightens and the heat rises. You rinse your plate with water from a jug that probably has something living in the bottom. But hey, your immune system either evolves or exits, right? As you pack away your breakfast setup, you glance around your modest pantry. A half-empty sack of flour, a tin of lard, and a single onion that's been holding on longer than expected. You make a mental note. Stretch everything another 3 days, and maybe barter for eggs if your neighbor's hens are in the mood. Quirky fact for the day: some frontier towns use dried apples as a form of currency during shortages. They were light, valuable, and didn't spoil quickly. It's like Bitcoin, if Bitcoin could rot and attract mice. You gather your gear for the day: a battered canteen, a roll of jerky, and a slice of leftover cornbread wrapped in a cloth. You're not sure if it's for lunch or for bribes. Maybe both. Your stomach isn't full. You step outside, blinking into the rising sun, and instantly regret it. The wind hasn't picked up yet, so the air is still and thick, just enough for the smells to linger. The stables, the outhouse, whatever died under the porch last week and now refuses to decompose in peace. Your boots crunch on dry dirt, and you scan the horizon. No clouds. That's either a blessing or a threat. Out here, weather isn't an inconvenience. It's a dice roll with your life on the table. As you bend to check the chicken coop, you remember the first rule of surviving the Wild West. Everything wants to kill you. And not metaphorically. You peek under a roosting hen and narrowly avoid a peck to the wrist. Territorial little beast. You retrieve 2 warm eggs, one cracked, one whole, and count yourself lucky. Yesterday, there were none. Tomorrow might bring snakes. Chicken coops were frequent targets for rats, raccoons, and the occasional rattler just looking for a warm place to nap and maybe swallow an egg. Or your hand. You head to the well, half humming, half muttering, your brain on autopilot, but stop cold. Something's moving by the woodpile. You squint. Heart already doing a nervous little tap dance. A tail disappears behind a stump. Too fast for a raccoon, too quiet for a dog. You edge closer, stick in hand, just in case. A snake, coiled, sun-warmed, and sleepy, but alert. You step back slowly. No need to panic. Yet, you remember the advice. Give it space. Let it go. Most bites happen because people get cocky. Back at the cabin, you shake out your bedrolls, boots, and even your hat. It's a habit now. You've heard too many stories, like the one about the ranch hand who lost a toe to a sleeping scorpion, or the poor traveler who thought his boots just had extra padding, until the spider inside bit him twice before breakfast. Historians still debate which threats were deadliest on the frontier, nature's creatures or humans themselves. You're leaning toward the wildlife. At least animals don't pretend to be friendly first. You sling your pack over your shoulder and begin the trek toward the creek. It's not far, maybe half a mile, but every step could be a gamble. You scan the ground for holes. Flash floods cut dry gullies that vanish until you're already ankle-deep and falling. The path is quiet except for your footsteps and the occasional rustle from bushes you definitely don't want to investigate. The birds here are sharp-eyed and skittish, always watching from the fence posts. One lets out a screech, more annoyed than melodic, and you mutter something unkind under your breath. Halfway to the creek, you hear it. A low rumble, not thunder, hooves. You freeze, eyes darting for cover. Could be wild horses, could be a traveling party, could be outlaws, or just someone moving cattle. You duck behind a rock outcropping, heartbeat thudding in your ears like a war drum. Dust rises in the distance, and then they pass. 5 riders, rough men, armed, eyes scanning the land. You hold your breath until the last one disappears into the hills. You don't exhale until your knees tell you to sit down. In towns, you might be safer, but only just. Settlements offered protection in numbers, but disease, violence, and lawlessness could be even worse there. At least out here, when something comes for you, it's honest. As you reach the creek, you spot fresh tracks by the water's edge. Deer, maybe. Could be a wolf. You keep your eyes open while you fill your canteen. The water looks clean. That doesn't mean it is. You've already been warned. Waterborne illnesses run rampant out here. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery. If the wildlife doesn't get you, the microbes might. Still, you drink. You have to. One quirky but chilling detail. Some settlers used silver coins in their water barrels, believing the metal purified the water. Was it science? Was it superstition? Historians still argue. But when your choices are superstition or diarrhea, you pick the coin and hope for the best. You're sweating now. The sun's higher. The heat climbs, crawling down your back and up your sleeves. You wipe your brow and head home, eyes scanning every shadow, every bush, every movement in your periphery. Out here, carelessness is a prequel to tragedy. The wind finally stirs, cool, dusty, full of pollen and warnings. You smell something sharp. Burning? Not fire. Just someone downwind boiling lye soap. Still, your shoulders tense. Fire is a constant threat. A single spark could erase an entire town, or cabin, or life. By the time you reach home, your nerves are frayed. You step through the door, check your boots again, and sit just for a moment. A breath, a pause. The wooden floor creaks under your weight. You think about how many times today you almost got hurt. Or worse. And the day's barely started. You decide to head into town. Not for pleasure. Pleasure doesn't exist out here unless you're very creative with dried peaches. But because you're out of flour, low on salt, and your last bar of soap was used up cleaning a saddle. So you grab your coin pouch, tiny, depressingly light, and head off down the rutted trail that leads towards civilization. You pass a few scattered homesteads along the way, smoky chimneys, fences half mended, children peeking out from behind doorways with expressions older than their years. The closer you get to town, the worse the smell becomes. You didn't think that was possible, but then again, the frontier loves proving you wrong. The first thing to hit you is the dust. Fine, clingy everywhere. It coats your boots, your face, your tongue. Then comes the noise. Hammers clanking, wheels creaking, someone yelling about pigs that got loose again. And then the smell really kicks in. Manure. So much manure. See, horses are the primary mode of transportation, and horses don't have bathroom breaks. They just go. All the time. Everywhere. And with no sanitation department, it piles up. Some towns are so thick with waste, it reaches ankle deep in the main street. You make a game of hopping from dry patch to dry patch. You lose. Flies swarm like they've been waiting for you personally. You wave your hand around your face in that classic feudal gesture. You pass by a saloon. It's noon, and already someone's being thrown out the door. A man lands in the dirt, hat flying, pride somewhere back inside. Contrary to what the movies tell you, saloons aren't classy places with swinging doors and clean glasses. Most are one-room shacks with crooked counters, mismatched chairs, and booze that tastes like someone strained turpentine through an old sock. Some even cut their liquor with kerosene, tobacco juice, or pepper to give it bite. Occasionally, a drink might make you blind, or just dead. You keep walking. The general store stands crooked but proud. Inside, it's an assault on your wallet. Prices are absurd. Flour that would cost pennies back east now eats up half your week's income. A can of peaches is a luxury item, like caviar or a working faucet. Historians note that goods cost so much in the West, not because of greed, but because of logistics. Everything had to be hauled across the country, often by ox-drawn wagons or on creaking trains. Still, when you hold that tin of peaches and realize it's more expensive than a night's lodging, you begin to understand the real value of fruit. A woman beside you haggles with the clerk, holding up an onion like it's a family heirloom. You nod in silent solidarity. You step outside and continue your reluctant tour. Over by the blacksmiths, sparks fly from metal striking metal. It's mesmerizing until you remember how many people here have permanent burns, lost fingers, or missing eyebrows from being just a little too close to the forge. Safety goggles don't exist. Neither do gloves half the time. You pass the sheriff's office. It's quiet. That could mean anything. Now, let's talk violence. Movies give you heroic duels at high noon. Two clean men with perfect teeth squinting at each other over a dusty street. The reality. Most violence happened in the shadows. Drunken arguments, ambushes, accidents. Maybe a card game gone bad. Maybe someone stepped on the wrong boot. You overhear a man outside the saloon grumble about a shooting last week over a chicken. No, really. A stolen chicken led to a fatal brawl and 3 broken chairs. The chicken survived. You duck into the post office. The latest newspaper is 2 weeks old. Still, it's something. Mail delivery is slow, unreliable, and sometimes hijacked. You think about writing a letter home, but home feels so far away that the thought hurts. You leave with empty hands. One fringe tidbit you remember. In some towns, the post office doubled as the town's only library, polling station, and dentist's office. Multitasking wasn't a skill, it was survival. As you walk down the main street, you see the church, whitewashed, one room, perched on a hill. Beside it, a modest schoolhouse. A teacher's voice floats through the open windows, stern and melodic. Inside, maybe a dozen children from ages 5 to 15, all crammed onto rough benches. One slate board, maybe a tattered reader, passed around like treasure. You reach the livery stable and consider the cost of boarding a horse, if you had one. Instead, you're just resting. You sit on the edge of a trough and let your legs stop throbbing. From here, you can see the town in full. It's not pretty. The buildings are mismatched, slapped together with nails, hope, and maybe whiskey. But it's something. A cluster of humans trying to hold back the wilderness with hammers and grit. Historians still debate whether these towns represent the best or worst of the frontier spirit. On one hand, cooperation, community, courage. On the other, exploitation, lawlessness, and endless filth. The truth is probably both. A bell rings faintly in the distance. Someone's calling a town meeting, or maybe a fight's about to start. Hard to tell. Either way, it's time to head back. You shift your pack, now heavier with overpriced flour, and begin the dusty, manure-dodging hike home. You haven't even made it to lunchtime, but you survived town. Barely. Back home, you unload your tiny haul from town. A sack of flour, a twist of salt, and a skeptical-looking slab of dried meat that cost more than your dignity. You place them carefully on your pantry shelf, which is actually just a board nailed into the wall at a crooked angle, and take stock. You're still dangerously low on coffee. That's going to be tomorrow's problem, or tonight's if things go really badly. Your neighbor's kid runs past the cabin, yelling something about Doc Harrow pulling a tooth with pliers again. You grimace. It's not a joke. It's how dental work actually happens out here. So let's talk medicine. If you thought hygiene was bad, wait until you meet Frontier Healthcare. You head to town once more out of morbid curiosity and a sore wrist you've been ignoring for a week. And maybe because you heard Doc Harrow got a new saw, which, weirdly, is good news. The doctor's office is a single room with mismatched furniture, a cabinet of jars filled with substances you don't recognize, and a cot that smells like old sweat and fresh regret. The doctor himself is maybe 50 or 80. Hard to tell. He's got the look of a man who's seen more blood than rest, and he's drinking coffee that might be more whiskey than bean. He examines your wrist and nods sagely. Could be gout or ghosts. He's joking. Probably. Medical training on the frontier is a flexible concept. Some doctors trained in Europe or big American cities. Others, well, they read a book once, or apprenticed under someone who saw a real doctor once, long ago in St. Louis. Standards were negotiable. Historians still argue how many frontier doctors were formally trained. Some estimate it was fewer than half. And surgical knowledge, spotty at best. Germ theory was still controversial in some circles. Sterilizing instruments was considered extra. Soap? A suggestion, not a rule. He offers you a remedy, probably a mix of laudanum, opium, crushed willow bark, and a splash of alcohol. You say no because you value consciousness. Instead, he wraps your wrist with a rag, dipped in something pungent, and mutters a half prayer, half recipe. You nod, thank him, and leave. As you walk back, you pass the cemetery. It's growing. Small wooden crosses, some with names, many without. You stop at one. Fresh dirt. A doll rests against the headboard. You don't need to know the details. It's always the same. Infection, childbirth, accident, fever, bad luck. If you're injured out here, cut, broken, burned, there are no ERs. Just a fire, a bottle of something strong, and someone with a steady enough hand to hold a knife. Amputations are done with bone saws. Anesthesia, if you're lucky, is whiskey. If not, you bite down on leather and scream into the walls. There's a story everyone tells about a miner who slipped and gashed his leg. He didn't think much of it, wrapped it in cloth. 3 days later, he was dead from infection. Another man broke his ribs in a fall and punctured a lung. They tried to drain it with a kitchen knife. He died too. Some say pain was the most reliable diagnostic tool available. If it stopped hurting, you were either getting better or already too far gone. You remember a particularly strange treatment, mercury. Yes, that mercury, used for everything from syphilis to toothaches. And don't even get started on bloodletting. Still popular out here. Bad humors, they say. Gotta let them out. One quirky, lesser-known practice involved placing heated coins on wounds to draw out illness. Others involved cabbage poultices, turpentine rubs, or chewing tobacco leaves and applying the paste to open sores. Effective? Unlikely. But options were limited. You get home and stare at your wrist. It's still sore, but at least it's attached. You've heard too many stories that end with, "and then he lost the arm." Dinner's calling, but you're not hungry. You boil some water anyway. Not to cook with, just to sterilize your mind. You light an oil lamp and sit at your table. The flame flickers, casting shadows that dance like ghosts across the wooden walls. You rub your wrist and wonder how many people made it through life here without ever seeing a proper doctor. Probably most of them, which explains the life expectancy. Historians estimate that in the 1870s American West, the average lifespan was under 40. Childbirth killed 1 in 4 women in remote areas. Children often didn't survive past age 5, and those who did, they lived with the knowledge that a bad fall, a rusty nail, or a cough could be their undoing. And yet, people endured. Somehow, not just with fear, but with humor. They told stories, laughed at terrible jokes, shared homemade cures that probably didn't work, but at least brought comfort. You tip back in your chair and stare at the ceiling, half expecting it to leak. Your wrist throbs in rhythm with your heartbeat. You wonder how people didn't just give up entirely, but maybe they didn't have time to think about it. Out here, survival is a full-time job. You wake the next morning still alive, which feels like an achievement. Your wrist is stiff, your back sore, and the pillow has escaped somewhere during the night, probably on its way to a better life. The fire went out hours ago, so the room is freezing. Your breath fogs the air. The blankets didn't do much, but you tell yourself they tried. Breakfast is the usual, cold beans and warm regret. Today, you've decided to do something bold, or possibly foolish. You're traveling, maybe to a nearby settlement, maybe just out to scout new land, maybe to follow some half-whispered rumor about better soil and fewer mosquitoes. Whatever the reason, you're packing your things and heading west, because that's what people do out here. Move, hope, survive. You tie up your bundle and check the essentials. Jerky, check. Canteen, check. Flint, always map? Well, sort of. A scrap of parchment with river, scrawled vaguely in the margin, and a mountain that looks suspiciously like a chicken. Still better than nothing. You don't have a horse. Those cost a fortune and eat like royalty. So it's your legs again. You begin walking, boots crunching over dry ground, hat pulled low, eyes scanning for snakes, outlaws, or worse, holes deep enough to twist an ankle and end your journey in the most anticlimactic way possible. The trail is uneven and unforgiving. You pass an abandoned wagon half buried in dust. Its axle snapped, a broken wheel tilted like a tombstone. There's a child's shoe beside it. No people, just silence and something heavy in your chest. The American West is full of ghosts. Not the haunting kind, but the lingering kind. Stories embedded in tracks, bones, and forgotten belongings. You cross a dry creek bed and pause at a stone marker, someone's grave. A wooden sign worn smooth by wind and sun. No name, just a single word carved into the wood. Mother. You swallow hard and move on. Travel out here is never simple. Roads are suggestions at best. You follow ruts made by wagons years ago. If you're lucky, they still lead somewhere. If not, well, you'll find out the hard way. By midday, your canteen is half empty and your resolve fully tested. The sun has teeth today. It gnaws at your neck, bakes your shoulders, and turns the trail into a shimmering blur. You stop under a scraggly tree for a break. The shade is barely a suggestion. You chew a piece of jerky so dry it might double as roofing material. Then you hear it, a distant rumble, hooves, number wheels, a wagon train. You move toward the sound, cresting a hill just as the first wagon comes into view. It's a whole caravan, maybe a dozen families making the same gamble you are, only bigger. Their oxen plod forward slowly, dust clouds trailing behind them like ghosts. Children walk barefoot beside the wheels, women carry babies in slings, and the men walk with rifles slung across their shoulders. No one rides. Every step is earned. You fall in beside them, asking permission with your eyes more than your words. A nod from a weathered man tells you it's fine. Community, however temporary, is still community. Someone hands you a piece of cornbread. It's dry, crumbles in your hand, and might contain weevils. You eat it gratefully. The rhythm of the wagons is hypnotic. Creak, thump, shuffle, repeat. But it doesn't last long. You reach a river crossing. It's not wide, but it's fast. And there's no bridge. Wagons pause. Wheels are checked. Barrels are sealed. Some people strip down. Others pray. One man ties barrels to his wagon, trying to float it like a makeshift boat. You watch, heart pounding. The wagon enters the water, bobbing, groaning. Halfway across, the current grabs it. It tips, screams. A dog barks. A barrel floats downstream. The man makes it out, soaked and coughing. His supplies don't. You're next. You remove your boots, tie them around your neck, and step into the water. It's cold, deeper than expected, and the current pulls at your legs like a warning. You keep going. Half wading, half stumbling, you make it across. Barely. Historians estimate that river crossings were among the most dangerous parts of westward travel. Many deaths occurred not from disease or violence, but from drowning, especially children. Some families buried multiple loved ones along a single crossing. You help someone pull their wagon up the far bank. The mud is thick. Your legs burn. Your hands blister, but no one complains. No one has the energy. That night, you camp with the train. A small fire, some beans. Someone sings, badly but sincerely. The stars come out one by one, each brighter than any city light. You lie on your back, staring upward, letting the weight of the day melt away. You think about the people who walked this trail before you, those who made it, and those who didn't. And you realize, for all its brutality, the West has a strange kind of beauty. It doesn't care if you survive, but if you do, it lets you belong. You drift off, one hand still on your pack, the other under your head. The night is cold, the wind is rising, and somewhere nearby, a wolf begins to howl. Morning breaks in a way that doesn't so much greet you as tackle you. A baby is crying. Oxen are bellowing. Someone's frying something that smells like shoe leather and onions. Your back feels like you slept on a rock, probably because you did. But you're alive, and no one stole your boots, so the day's already a minor success. You help the caravan pack up. Every bundle is tied down, every wheel checked, every child rounded up like loose chickens. The air is thick with dust, urgency, and the grim rhythm of westward migration. This isn't a vacation, it's an exodus. You're not quite sure where this wagon train is headed. Out west is the most specific answer anyone gives. Oregon, California, someplace with trees maybe, a place with rain they hope. Most have never seen it. They're chasing rumors, maps, and dreams scrawled in pencil. By mid-morning, you're moving again. The trail is narrower now, squeezed between hills and patches of thick sagebrush. Every few miles, someone stops to adjust a harness or tighten a wheel. You hear grunts, groans, the occasional swear that technically counts as poetry. Then comes the hill. It doesn't look steep at first, but once you start climbing, your thighs scream mutiny. The wagons groan like old men. One ox stumbles and refuses to rise. A group gathers around it, murmuring, checking its legs. Eventually, they do what they have to. They unyoke it and leave it behind. The others keep walking. No one says anything. You just hear the flies buzzing. Historians note that westward settlers often had to make impossible decisions, abandoning animals, possessions, even loved ones, because delay meant danger. A single day lost could mean getting snowed in before the mountains, or hitting a river too deep to cross. The climb crests after an hour of pure punishment. At the top, you can see for miles, rolling hills, dry plains, distant mountains like the edge of the world. Someone gasps. A woman starts crying, not from beauty, from exhaustion. You sit on a rock, legs trembling, and pull out a canteen. It's almost empty. You sip slowly. Everyone around you looks like ghosts in training, sunburned, dirt-caked, hollow-eyed, and still they keep moving. As the caravan descends, the terrain shifts again. The flatlands stretch before you, good for speed, bad for cover. The wind picks up. Dust devils dance in the distance. The sun hangs like a punishment in the sky. Someone wraps a cloth over their face. Outlaw style. You do the same. Midday brings trouble. One wagon hits a hidden ditch. The wheel snaps. The whole thing lurches sideways, spilling crates and people. No one is hurt badly, but the axle's done. Broken clean through. People gather. Tools appear. Sweat pours. You help lift the wagon. Someone pulls out a spare beam. Blessed be the overpackers. A makeshift repair is done in under an hour. The family thanks everyone with silent nods. No one wastes energy on words out here. The trail continues. You notice markers now. Small cairns, wooden crosses, etched stones. Graves, some with names, many with just initials. One says simply, Father 1848. Another, Baby 1851. There's a quiet that falls whenever you pass them. Even the children hush. One quirky but chilling tidbit. Some families carried portable coffins on their wagons, just in case. It sounds morbid, but out here, preparation was love. If someone died, they didn't want them buried nameless beneath the wrong tree. Late afternoon, you pause for water at a brackish spring. Tastes like rust and despair, but it's wet, and that's all that matters. You refill your canteen and try not to think about what else is in there. Protozoa, parasites, possibly ghosts. You walk beside a young boy for a while. He's barefoot, holding a stick like a sword. I'm gonna be a sheriff, he says proudly. You nod. Don't forget a good hat. He grins and runs off. He doesn't know about dysentery, or frostbite, or the odds. You keep walking. As evening approaches, the caravan halts by a small creek. It's shallow, slow-moving, blessedly clear. Fires are lit. Meals are prepared. Mostly beans, biscuits, and anything that didn't rot in someone's wagon. A woman makes coffee strong enough to wake the dead or keep the living slightly functional. Around one campfire, someone tells a story about a ghost town where everyone vanished overnight. Another tells of a mountain pass where wagons disappeared, never to be found. You sip your tin cup and let the tales soak into your bones. Historians still debate whether the American West was more defined by hardship or by hope. Was it survival or ambition that drove people on? Maybe both. Maybe they couldn't tell the difference after a while. As night falls, you lie under your blanket, staring at the stars again. The boy from earlier is curled beside his mother. dreaming of sheriff's badges and imaginary bandits. The wind sighs through the grass. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote yips. You clutch your pack and drift toward sleep, thinking, maybe tomorrow will be easier, but you know it won't. And still, you'll walk it anyway. The trail doesn't wait for your aching muscles to recover. Morning comes like a marching order, and you rise with the others, half asleep, legs stiff, eyes burning from dust and bad dreams. You stretch beside a fire that's little more than ash and ember now, and someone hands you a cup of something warm and bitter, coffee, or at least its shadow. Today's terrain is different, less open, more rugged. The land swells into hills, and the path narrows between scattered rock outcroppings and sun-scorched shrubs. The air is sharp, cooler here, which almost feels like mercy. But you know better. The West doesn't give out kindness. It just offers new ways to be tired. After a few miles, the lead wagon calls a halt. Ahead lies a ravine, a gash in the earth with only a narrow path around its edge. Too narrow for the wagons, too steep to reroute easily. A debate begins. Some argue for backtracking and finding another way. Others, already exhausted and running low on supplies, vote to push forward. You listen, silent, as voices rise, hands gesture, maps unfold. Someone finally says what everyone's thinking: there is no better way. So the wagons are unloaded. Supplies are carried down by hand using ropes, sweat, and prayer. You descend beside them, gripping a rough line of hemp wrapped around your palms. Dust fills your nose. Your arms shake. Your feet slide on loose gravel. Every step could end in a broken leg or worse. A barrel of flower tips rolls, bursts. A week's meals gone in a soft white cloud. Down below, oxen are led around, their hooves slipping, their eyes wide. One collapses in terror. It takes 4 people to drag it forward, panting and furious. You help pull a wagon base by hand, 6 of you groaning in unison. Every inch is earned. At the bottom, someone vomits. Another just lies down in the dirt, eyes closed, whispering something you can't hear. Maybe a prayer, maybe just counting stars they'll never see again. Historians often overlook the sheer physicality of westward migration. It wasn't just riding in wagons, it was lifting, dragging, pushing, falling, muscles torn, backs thrown out, skin flayed by ropes. It was survival by inches, not by miles. You rest for a moment on a flat rock. A girl beside you is bleeding from the hands. Blisters popped. Her father ties scraps of linen around them without a word. Then comes the climb, up the opposite side of the ravine, steeper. No rope now, just rocks and willpower. You go on hands and knees. Your boots slip. You grab tufts of stubborn grass like lifelines. At one point, you think about giving up, just sitting down, letting the sky take you. But the caravan is moving, and you refuse to be left behind. At the top, you collapse face first into the dirt, gasping. The world spins. Someone offers water. You nod, too winded to thank them, but the nod is enough. And then, laughter. You hear it from a group sitting in a circle nearby, passing around something in a jar that smells like peaches and moonshine. Someone tells a joke involving a preacher, a goat, and a thunderstorm. You don't understand it, but you laugh anyway. It's the only kind of medicine that works instantly. A little later, as everyone rests, a woman pulls out a harmonica. The tune is simple, melancholy, but it cuts through the exhaustion and softens the air. One quirky note: some settlers believed harmonica music soothed animals, especially oxen. Whether true or not, it was one of the few luxuries people brought west. that didn't weigh too much or break too easily. Night falls earlier here. Hills cast long shadows. The stars feel closer as if watching. Fires burn low. The sounds of the day fade into the gentle murmur of crickets, the occasional bark of a dog, and the hiss of meat cooking in pans. You sit with a young couple who whisper about the land they're hoping to claim. Somewhere near water, they say. Maybe build a schoolhouse. They've been married 3 months. Their hands are calloused. Their eyes are bright. You don't tell them what you've seen. You let them dream. Historians still argue whether the American West was the land of promise or the graveyard of hope. For every homestead that stood, another fell to drought, fire, or despair. And yet, people kept coming, chasing land, luck, freedom, chasing something. You pull your blanket over your shoulders and lie back on the hard ground. The harmonica plays again, slower this time, like a lullaby for the land. The fire crackles beside you. A baby fusses in the next camp, then goes quiet. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote calls out, and another answers. You close your eyes. Tomorrow will bring more rocks, more heat, maybe rain, maybe another ravine. But tonight, in this brief moment, under this sea of stars, you are warm, fed, and surrounded by people who haven't given up yet. And that counts for something. Dawn cracks open like a slowly peeling egg, bleeding pale yellow light across the hills. Your body protests every motion, as if overnight it decided to become one with the ground. You roll over with a grunt, realize you're covered in fine dust, and accept that this is just who you are now. A walking, aching sack of trail grit and stubbornness. Today, there's talk of passing through a stretch known simply as the Cut. You overhear a man say it like it's a curse. Narrow walls, no cover, one way in, one way out. If anything or anyone waits inside, you're at their mercy. You pack your things with more care than usual. Load your canteen, tuck the knife a little closer, double knot your boots. The caravan sets off under a sky as blue as a promise and just as easily broken. As you near the entrance to the Cut, the landscape changes. Flat plains give way to sheer cliffs that rise like the jaws of some ancient beast. The path narrows until the wagons move single file, hemmed in by rock on both sides. The sun disappears for a while. Shadows settle thick and still. This is not a place to linger. The group tightens. People stop talking. You can hear your own breathing, the crunch of hooves, the creak of axles. Somewhere up ahead, a child starts crying. Her mother hums a tune, but her voice shakes. Outlaws were a real threat in places like this. Ambushes happen not often, but often enough to make people cautious. Bandits favored tight passes where wagons couldn't turn around. They didn't always kill, but they always took. One quirky historical note: some wagon trains employed scouts or even paid mercenaries to ride ahead and scan for danger. Others just hoped. You're hoping hard. Halfway through the Cut, someone gasps. You spin, hand on your knife, but it's not an ambush. It's bones. Dozens of them, sun-bleached, picked clean, arranged in strange little piles. Animal mostly, maybe not all. There's a legend someone mumbles about a trapper who got stranded here one winter, ate his mule, then his boots, then his own hand. You don't ask if it's true, you keep walking. Just before the end of the fast, you see them. Riders. 3 of them on the ridge above, silhouettes against the sky. Motionless. Watching. Your stomach turns to stone. You're too far in to run, too tight to fight. The wagons clatter forward, slower now. Every creak sounds like a scream. But the riders don't move, just watch. And then, gone. They melt behind the rocks, as if they were never there. No one talks for another hour. Historians still argue whether tales of banditry were exaggerated or underplayed. The records are thin. Some say many attacks were blamed on Indians, when in fact they were just desperate men with nothing left to lose. Out here, moral clarity fades like footprints in dry sand. At last, you emerge from the cut into open land again. The sunlight returns. The group breathes. Someone makes a joke. No one laughs, but the attempt is appreciated. You stop by a shallow stream for a break. Wash your face. Drink. Rest your forehead on a cool stone. And try not to think about how vulnerable you still are. Later, the trail curves westward again, and you see smoke in the distance. Not dark like fire, but thin, cooking smoke. A settlement. The caravan picks up speed. People straighten up. Spirits lift. You arrive near sundown. It's not much. 5 buildings, a hitching post, a well, and a saloon with swinging doors that creak like a tired yawn. But to you, it looks like Rome. Some stay, others trade. You step inside the saloon. It's cooler, quieter. A barkeep with no eyebrows pours a drink that could double as varnish. A few travelers slouch at tables, whispering, playing cards, watching you like you might be trouble or salvation. A woman in a green dress sings off-key at the piano. She catches your eye and winks. You nod politely. You sit at the bar and sip. Your throat burns. It's perfect. This little town unnamed on your map might be your next home, or just another stop. That's the thing about frontier settlements. They popped up like mushrooms after a rain and vanished just as fast. One quirky fact: some towns existed for only a few months, built around mining rumors or railroad promises that never came. Their saloons outlived their post offices. You hear talk of another group heading out in the morning, deeper west. They're chasing silver or farmland or something they haven't named yet. You consider joining, but your feet say no. They're tired. You're tired. You want to stay. Just for a bit. Outside, the stars blink on. You find a spot behind the saloon and curl up in your blanket. The wind smells like whiskey and horses. You close your eyes, but the image of those riders in the cut lingers. Were they bandits, guardians, ghosts, or just another mystery the West refuses to explain? Either way, they didn't stop you. And tomorrow, if your feet forgive you, you'll keep going. Because out here, survival isn't an end. It's a direction. You sleep later than usual. Maybe it's the thick walls of the saloon shielding you from wind. Maybe it's the whiskey fumes still lodged somewhere in your lungs. Or maybe, just maybe, it's that for the first time in weeks, you're not waking up on dirt. Either way, the sun is already halfway up by the time you stir. The town is alive with low murmurs and the clink of iron. Someone is hammering a shoe onto a horse. A child runs past carrying a stick shaped vaguely like a rifle. The saloon door swings open and shut with a kind of lazy rhythm, like it's exhaling. You stretch, wincing at the stiffness in your shoulders. Your body feels heavier than before, not with fatigue exactly, but with inertia. Rest is addictive. Even out here, you wander to the well in the center of town and draw a tin bucket up by the rope. The water is cold, clean, miraculous. You splash your face, drink deeply, and breathe. Then you spot it. A notice board nailed to the side of the general store. Rough parchment pinned up with hand-forged nails. Most are faded. Cattle for sale, missing horses, a reward for a man with no eyes and a mean disposition. But one catches your attention. Help wanted, stage route to Cedar Bluff. Riders and guards, leave tomorrow. You stare at it for a long while. Leaving means moving again, risking again, but staying. Staying means fading. Settlements like this don't promise much. They offer rest, not routes. You spend the rest of the day asking around. The job's legit. A mail coach needs escorting through rough country. Maybe a week's ride, maybe 2. Danger almost guaranteed. But the pay? $2 silver and a chance to see more of the world. You find the coachmaster that evening, a tall man with boots older than the town and a scar across one cheek like a dried river. He sizes you up without blinking. "You got a steady hand?" he asks. You nod. "You got a reason to ride?" You think about that one. Then you just say, "West." He nods once. "Be ready by dawn." Historians still debate the role of stagecoaches in taming the frontier. Some say they were lifelines. Others say they brought trouble. Bandits followed them, towns rose around them, then withered when the routes shifted. Either way, they moved more than mail. They moved stories. That night, you prepare. Clean your boots. Oil your knife. Count out your remaining jerky like it's gold. You find a soft place in the stable hay and close your eyes. The horses snort nearby. One kicks the wall. You dream of narrow trails, canyons, the thundering sound of hooves. And then, it's morning. The stage is a wooden beast, painted red once, now mostly dust. It has iron wheels, leather seats, and a driver who looks like he's fought bears and maybe lost once or twice. He grunts a greeting. You throw your bundle on top, climb beside him, and feel the weight of the journey press down again. You're not alone. There's another guard, an older woman with a long coat and a longer rifle. She nods once. "Don't talk much," she mutters. "Just shoot straight." The coachmaster gives a shout. The horses lurch forward. And just like that, you're moving again. The land blurs past in shades of brown, red, and gold. Mesas rise in the distance like broken teeth. Crows circle above. You pass dry creek beds, scattered bones, a single boot, half buried in dust. By midday, you stop at a relay station, a squat stone hut with one man, 2 horses, and a pot of coffee that could strip paint. He nods, swaps horses, says nothing. Then you're off again. One quirky fact: relay stations often sat 10 to 20 miles apart, spaced so that fresh horses could be swapped out quickly. These outposts were manned by lonely souls who rarely saw another face for weeks. Some went mad. Some turned bandit. A few married their coffee pots. In the late afternoon, your coach rattles through a dried gulch. The sun hangs low. Shadows stretch long. You tense. This is ambush country. The other guard's hand rests on her rifle. And then you see them. 4 figures. On horseback. Dark shapes against the red rock. They don't move. The coach doesn't stop. The driver cracks the reins. The horses bolt faster. Your heart hammers. One of the riders shifts slightly. A gun glints in the light. The older guard lifts her rifle. You do the same, but no shot comes. The riders just watch you pass. Again. Historians still argue whether such figures were always real. The West was filled with mirages, with fears that took shape and stared back. Were they scouts, spirits, warning signs, or just hungry travelers as wary of you as you were of them? That night, you camp beside a cliff. No fire, too risky, just cold beans and colder silence. The other guard sharpens her knife with a rhythm like breathing. You lie with your back to the rock, knife under your coat, eyes scanning stars. You wonder if you'll see home again, but then you remember. You never had one to begin with, just places you pass through, just names on signs that faded in your wake. The wind rises, somewhere coyotes howl again. You smile, almost, because somehow in this dangerous silence, in this strange in-between place, you feel more alive than you ever did back east. Maybe this is home, for now. The second day on the coach route begins with a sound you've come to dread. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the brittle, hollow sort, like the land is holding its breath. You pack quickly, no fire again, just a cold biscuit and jerky for breakfast. The other guard, who still hasn't told you her name, jerks her chin westward and mutters, "Let's ride." The stagecoach lurches into motion, wheels groaning, horses snorting steam into the morning chill. You ride up top again, rifle across your lap, eyes sweeping the horizon. The land is wide open here, too open. No cover, no trees, just sagebrush, scattered rocks, and the kind of silence that makes your skin itch. You feel seen, hunted maybe. You check your weapon again. By mid-morning, the terrain shifts. The road snakes into a dry canyon. Walls close on either side. Red stone rising like old bones. The driver mutters a curse. "Bad spot," he growls. "Real bad." You tighten your grip on the rifle. About halfway through, the coach groans to a stop. Up ahead, a fallen tree. Too clean to be natural, too fresh. Everyone knows what this is. The driver doesn't wait. He leaps down and begins yanking at the branches. You and the other guard spread out, weapons ready. You scan the cliffs, the shadows, the sky. A voice echoes off the stone. "Easy now." You whirl. 3 men step out from behind a boulder, guns drawn, dusty coats. One wears a bowler hat, far too fine for this landscape. His smile is wide, too wide. "We ain't here for blood," he says. "Just the mail." The driver shouts something brave and stupid. A shot rings out. Chaos. You dive behind the coach, firing once, twice, missing both. The other guard moves like smoke, drops one bandit clean through the chest. The others scatter. One returns fire. The bullet bites into the wood near your head. Your hands shake, but you keep shooting. The man in the bowler hat ducks behind a rock. The horses scream and rear. Another shot, closer now. You feel it whistle past your cheek like death's whisper, and then, just as suddenly, it's over. Silence again. The bowler hat man is gone. The others either dead or disappeared. The guard checks your arm. "You good?" You nod. You're not. But you nod. Historians still argue whether the violence of the West was overblown by dime novels or downplayed by official records. Some say there were fewer shootouts than we imagine. Others say they happened every day, just rarely got written down. You bury the one bandit you killed. The others you leave to the scavengers. You fix the coach wheel, clear the road, and ride again. No one speaks for hours. That night, at a relay post halfway to Cedar Bluff, the driver drinks heavily. So does the guard. You just sit by the fire, staring into the flames, trying not to replay every moment. The local relay man is talkative, too talkative. "Heard there's war brewing out east," he says. "Always is. Some say this whole country's gonna split right in half." You nod vaguely. You're more concerned about staying whole yourself. A strange comfort comes from the fire, the way it crackles like it's telling old secrets. The horses sleep nearby, twitching in dreams. The wind howls through the canyons, but you're no longer afraid of it. You know its voice now. One quirky fact: many Westerners believed that coyotes could carry spirits on their howls, guiding the dead westward away from the living. Some travelers used coyote calls to mark a soul's passing. You lie back and watch the stars blink awake. They seem more numerous tonight, brighter even. The guard, who finally introduces herself as May, sits beside you and hands over a battered flask. To the dumb ones who stayed behind, she says. You clink your cup. And the dumber ones who rode west. You both laugh. It feels good, like a pressure valve releasing. Sleep comes easier tonight. You've earned it. In the morning, there's only one more stretch to Cedar Bluff. May says it's flat and open. Nothing worse than boredom ahead, she jokes. But you've learned. Out here, boredom is a luxury. The journey begins with cold wind and low clouds. Rain threatens. The horses are sluggish. The driver curses the mud. About an hour in, you pass a burned wagon, long abandoned. Blackened wheels, scorched crates, a doll's arm poking from the rubble. No one mentions it, but your stomach knots anyway. By noon, the clouds break. Sunlight cuts across the plains in golden slants. You can see Cedar Bluff in the distance, a cluster of buildings around a river bend, a steeple rising like a question mark. People wait at the edge of town, men with rifles, women with worry-lined faces, a child holding a daisy. You arrive. The mail is delivered. The coach is unhitched. The horses are rubbed down. And you're paid. 2 silver coins heavy in your palm. It's not much, but it's something. You ask about work. They need a smith's helper, a barn hand, a deputy even. You consider each. Then you just say, I'll think on it. You sleep that night in a real bed, under a patched quilt that smells like lavender. The mattress feels too soft, the ceiling too high. You don't sleep well because something in you has changed. You're not just passing through anymore. You're becoming part of the West itself. Its dust is in your lungs, its sky in your dreams, and its wild, uncertain call in your blood. You wake up in Cedar Bluff to the sound of a rooster who thinks it owns the world. The room is dim and unfamiliar, and for a moment, you don't know where you are. The quilt slides off as you sit up, and your back cracks in 3 places. The ache is less painful now, more like a whisper than a scream. You shuffle downstairs and find coffee waiting. Not strong, not weak, just there. Like everything else in this town. Functional, quiet, still breathing. Outside, Cedar Bluff stretches like a shrug of shoulders. One main street, a couple dozen buildings, a post office, and that little river winding past like it knows better places, but is being polite. You spend the morning wandering. People nod at you. Not overly friendly, but not hostile. You're a stranger, but a useful one. Someone who came with the mail and didn't die. That's enough. There's a blacksmith who says he could use an extra pair of hands. A teacher who mentions the school roof leaks and asks if you know how to fix shingles. A saloon keeper who eyes your boots and offers free drinks in exchange for stories. You start to realize something. Out here, skills matter more than background. People care if you can ride, shoot, build, patch, sew, listen, not where you were born, or what name your father had, or whether you went to church on Sundays. It's liberating and terrifying. You patched the school roof in the afternoon. Not well, but well enough. The teacher nods her thanks. Her smile is shy, like it's not used to coming out during daylight. That night, there's music at the saloon. A fiddler, a harmonica, laughter, even dancing, if you can call it that. You sip something warm and sweet, and listen to stories of droughts, dreams, and ghost towns swallowed by time. One man tells you about a mining town that disappeared overnight. Every soul gone, food still on the table, cards still laid on saloon tables. Spooked, he says. Some say it was the gold. Some say it was the guilt. One quirky historical footnote. There are several documented cases of boom towns vanishing rapidly, often due to water shortages, outbreaks, or failed rail deals. But legends always dress them up in whispers and shadows. May finds you at the edge of the crowd and sits beside you. She doesn't say much, just nods toward the open door. You follow her outside. It's one of those nights where the stars seem to lean in closer, almost listening. You sit on the steps and say nothing for a while. Then she speaks. I've been west as far as the Badlands, north to Helena, south to Santa Fe. It's all different, but it's all the same. You raise an eyebrow. How so? Doesn't matter how pretty the land looks. You scratch it deep enough, you find the same thing. People who want more than they have, and people who want to be left alone. She tips back her hat. Which one are you? You think about it. You really do. And then you say, depends on the day. She grins. Fair enough. You sleep better that night, not because the mattress is softer, but because, for the first time in a while, you don't feel like you're being chased. In the morning, the town is buzzing. A rider came in late with news. A train is coming. Not a metaphor, a real one. Steel tracks, engine, whistle, and all. Cedar Bluff has been hoping for this. If the line comes through, it means goods, people, money. If it skips them, well, the town might dry up like so many others. You help unload a shipment of timber. Nail down a new sign for the schoolhouse. Listen as people debate where the station might go. A banker arrives, a surveyor follows, and just like that, the future feels real. Historians still argue whether railroads saved or ruined frontier towns. Some prospered, others drowned in speculation and crime. What's certain is that steel rails changed everything. From the way people moved to the speed at which news and rumors traveled. You feel the shift, even if you can't name it yet. That evening, May pulls you aside. I'm heading north, she says. New job, new dust. You nod. You knew it was coming. You staying. You look around. Cedar Bluff, a name that barely exists on maps, but now it holds a roof you fixed, a teacher who thanks you, and boots drying by a stove in a saloon. I think I might. May offers her hand. You ever ride again? Find me. You shake on it. She mounts her horse, tips her hat, and disappears like she was never there. That night, you walk to the river, watch the moon skip across the current. You think about everything that's happened. Plains, canyons, ambushes, ghosts, harmonicas, burned wagons, silver coins. And you realize something. You came west to survive. But now, you're learning how to live. The days begin to blend. In the mornings, you fetch water from the river. In the afternoons, you help rebuild a crumbling barn behind the general store. At dusk, you sit on the porch of the post office, watching the wind comb through prairie grass like an invisible hand, smoothing the world. No one calls you a hero here. No one really calls you anything. But when the wheel on the teacher's cart cracks, they send for you. When the saloon's chimney clogs, they hand you a rope and a broom. When the preacher's fence breaks, you're already halfway through mending it before he even asks. That's what belonging feels like out here. Not a parade, not a title, just being asked, just being trusted. You find yourself growing quieter, more careful. You notice things more. The shift of light on water, the way clouds edge toward violet before it rains. The way the blacksmith hums the same 3 notes every time he works the bellows. The town changes with you. The sign at the edge of town gets a fresh coat of paint. Someone plants sunflowers near the well. A little girl ties scraps of ribbon to the hitching post so the horses feel pretty. Then one morning, it arrives. The train. It doesn't burst in. It sighs. A long steel serpent curling around the bend, slow as molasses, but twice as loud. The whistle splits the sky. People spill into the street like they've been summoned. You stand at the edge of it all, hands in your pockets, and watch the engine breathe smoke into the clouds. A man steps down. He's got shiny boots and a notebook. He starts asking questions. Another man follows, selling tonic that smells like turpentine. He calls it Elixir of the Rockies. People buy it anyway. A woman sets up a stand of silk scarves. A preacher with a different kind of smile offers pamphlets about salvation, his version naturally. In 2 days, Cedar Bluff doubles in noise and ambition. Some love it, some lock their doors. One quirky historical truth: towns that gained rail access often faced cultural whiplash. They went from remote outposts to chaotic boomtowns overnight. Crime, con men, circuses, politics, they all arrived by rail. The teacher's expression changes. She doesn't say it, but you can see it in her eyes. This isn't what she hoped for. Her schoolhouse now stands across from a brothel made of painted pine. You helped build a fence for her garden that weekend. She says thank you with a look more than words. You stay. But something in you stirs. You're not restless. Not yet. But you're alert. The way a dog lies still with one ear, always listening for something it hasn't heard in years. One night, sitting on the riverbank, you take out a small piece of flint you found weeks ago in the canyon. You strike it against steel. Sparks fly. You remember the coach, the cut, May, the silence, the stare of the riders who didn't fire, the night sky like velvet soaked in stars. You wonder if you're meant to settle, or if settling is just something people try when they're tired of running. Historians still argue whether frontiers were ever truly closed. The maps say they were. But the spirit? The spirit keeps walking. Cedar Bluff becomes a waypoint again. Mail comes daily now. A stage arrives each Thursday. There's a telegraph office with wires that hum like anxious bees. You help build the platform for a second train line. You teach a boy to mend boots. You fall asleep sometimes with your back against the barn wall, dreaming of wheels, hooves, wind, stars. Then, one morning, you wake before dawn. The town is quiet again, the kind of quiet you used to fear, but now you find oddly comforting. You pack your things slowly. You leave the silver coins buried under a rock by the river. You leave a note for the teacher that simply says, "Roof holds." You saddle up. No map. No companions. Just a slow canter westward into a morning painted in every color dust has ever dreamed of. You're not running anymore. You're just following the wind. Because out here, peace is not the absence of danger. It's the presence of space, of choices, of sky. Of knowing that wherever you ride, the story doesn't end. It just changes direction. The hoofbeats fade behind you now. Not in panic, not in haste, just slowly. Like a dream walking backward into the night. You let your shoulders drop. Let your hands fall open. Let the reins slip loose. Out here, the land doesn't need you to conquer it, just to listen. Just to ride gently across its skin and leave it no worse than you found it. The wind breathes through your coat. The stars hang a little lower. Somewhere, a coyote howls, not in warning, but in welcome, and you realize you're not alone. Not really. You've traveled through ambushes and ghost towns, across silence and saloons, through gunfire and kindness and dust. And in every step, you weren't just surviving, you were learning how to move slower, how to notice more, how to speak only when the words are worth hearing. Tonight, the road fades behind your eyelids. The clatter of wheels, the hush of sagebrush, the creak of saddle leather, all of it softens. You're safe now. No cliffs to cross, no riders in the shadows. Just rest. Let your breath match the rhythm of distant hooves. Let your bones settle into the earth's patient cradle. You've earned this peace. You carried more than most, and you did it without asking for a medal. That's the kind of strength no history book will tell. So sleep, traveler. The West will wait.